Hey there, it's Chrissy Key Rollins here. And if you're new to this series, I've been sharing weekly insights around the creation process and guiding you step by step to understanding the mindset and energy that lies behind taking consistent action toward creating whatever you desire in your life. Becoming aware of these insights will help you to overcome challenges and limitations that have been holding you back so that you can ditch the excuses and show up in life with confidence and clarity. If you want early access to these videos, you can join the community that I'm building over on Patreon, which you can find out more about at the link below. And in today's video, I'm going to take the conversation that we've been having about dealing with mental chatter and take it to the next step and reveal to you some insights around what the root cause of suffering really is, so that you are able to embrace the creative process and make steps towards creating the change that you desire with more ease and less frustration. Plus, I am going to walk you through the creation process of making your own homemade hanging heart garland, very much like this one. So be sure to stick around for that after the quick chat, and let's get started. Okay, so the insights I'm going to share with you today around suffering were a complete and total game changer for me. I remember one of my first mindset gurus that I came across throughout my personal development journey. He introduced me to the idea of what the real cause of suffering is. Now, there are some things that are outside of our control. There are certainly things that happen in our life that cause discomfort and fall out of alignment with the preference of the ego. But the insights that he shared with me that I'm going to share with you today in this video were mind-blowing and eye-opening. And it allowed me to forever maneuver and navigate in a different way that was more aligned, created more ease. And once I started to integrate and practice this concept, instantly removed the source of suffering, which was something of my own creation. Now, this root cause of suffering is something that we all run into, we deal with on a day-to-day basis. It happens without us even realizing that it's happening. And hopefully, once you are introduced to this idea, you will be able to take some awareness back into your own life, pay attention to the stories that run through your mind, the mental chatter that you have happening inside of yourself, and start to pinpoint how much this one single influence is showing up in your life and causing the suffering that you have been feeling and going through. Now, this thing that is oh so common that everybody is plagued with, everybody is affected by, and everybody participates in is your opinion. Now, the interesting thing about opinions that my teacher showed me along the way is that your opinions are not true, they're not real, and the majority of the time, they are actually not even your own. That's right. The majority of the opinions that you carry with you, you haven't even tested out firsthand and had your own direct experience with. Instead, you have adopted them from other people. Now, these might be well-meaning people. They might be people that you have known your entire life. But what ends up happening is that somebody shares their opinion on a certain topic, a certain situation, and instead of giving yourself the courtesy of trying out that situation or exploring that topic further from your own firsthand perspective, instead you just take their opinion, you tuck it away in your mind like it is a fact, and you don't do any further firsthand investigation on your own. One of my other mentors came along right after this insight was brought to me and said that if you haven't tried something for yourself at least 10 times, you have not earned the right to having a valid opinion. So I started to test this out for myself, and sure enough, I had a lot of opinions that I was carrying around with me about things that I had no firsthand experience with. I had no evidence of that I had gathered firsthand. They were just opinions of other people that I adopted over like facts. And I decided from that moment moving forward, and I have been practicing this for over a decade now, and believe me, it is definitely worth the exploration and the integration on your own. I started to take a look at the opinions that I held and then ask myself, do I know this to be a fact from my own firsthand experience, or am I just listening to the experience and the opinion of someone else who did have interaction with it. And I challenge myself to set aside forming an opinion on anything that I haven't had direct experience with and tried out for myself. And I took it to the next level by making sure that I had that experience multiple times before I actually determined what my opinion was on the subject matter. So my invitation for you, a little action item, so you can take this concept and start to integrate it, is start to pay attention to that mental chatter that's running through your mind and begin to notice what is fact and what is opinion. And you'll be able to differentiate this pretty easily once you start to ask, have I had firsthand experience with this? Like, for example, I've heard a lot of people say, running a business is hard. Getting a business started and up off the ground is really hard and challenging. And it takes a lot of time, a lot of energy, and a lot of money. And then I realized that the majority of people who had that opinion either had never tried entrepreneurship at all. They just witnessed and saw what other people were doing, or they didn't set themselves up for success, and the way that they went about it led them to expend extra time, extra money, extra energy that actually could have been avoided had they gone about it from a different plan. So once I started on the path, I started to realize that, yeah, you absolutely can invest a lot of time, money, and energy in trying to build a business. And you can also step into it in an easier way, aligning yourself with your purpose and your passion, aligning yourself with leading with service first, and allowing your future that is an inevitable destiny awaiting you to unfold in front of you. I find that to be a much more easy way to navigate the entrepreneurial journey. And I'm so glad that I didn't listen to people and stop something before I even had a chance to get it started. So as you start to pay attention to the opinions that you carry, find out, are they valid? Are they firsthand opinions from your own direct experience? And have you tried that experience multiple times? Think about it this way. If the first time that you met a dog and that dog was to bite you, does that mean that every dog that you run into bites? Does that mean that it's a fact that every dog bites and every time that you encounter a dog, you're going to get bitten? Many dog owners out there are already shaking their heads saying, no, that's absolutely not true. And if you didn't give yourself the chance to expose yourself to more dogs, different circumstances, different situations, you might not ever stumble across the fact that actually dogs often don't bite, and they can be quite delightful pets and companions and have some very positive interactions with them. So that's what I mean by trying it out more than one time. If your first time wasn't a positive experience, challenge yourself to do it again. Some of the steps that it takes to grow a business, like reaching out and starting conversations with strangers, doesn't always feel great the first time that you do it. But once you do it several times, you start to realize, wait a minute, there's great benefits in this. I found an easier way to do it. It doesn't have to be hard or a waste of time. So begin to, again, pay attention to the mental chatter that's going on. What's opinion? What's fact? What opinions are you carrying that are from your own direct experience? And what opinions are you carrying from other people that you can just set aside until you have a firsthand direct experience? And then start to look at what opinions have you formed solely off of one or two attempts or interactions with this thing that you have the opinion around, and which ones are tried and true, in and out, actually have enough experience that they can kind of solidify more into a valid opinion or a solidified fact in some cases. And then start to pay attention to how many opinions get handed to you, that get served up to you through media sources, through social media sources, through people that are around you in society. And begin to pay attention how people navigate their lives based on opinions that they actually don't have any firsthand experience about. I remember the first time that I interviewed for a job working for a chiropractor, I had the opinion that chiropractors weren't very educated and they weren't necessarily out there having the best interest for people, and that they were kind of, well, quacks. You've probably heard this as well. That was an opinion of someone that got handed to me, and I went into that interview thinking, these people don't really know what they're doing, but I need a job, so let me see how this goes. Within 5 minutes, I had a completely different understanding and experience of what chiropractic was about. And that kicked off a natural healing journey for myself that has led me to having this conversation with you today. And I found that just like any other industry, there are people that go into it fully equipped, fully knowledgeable, and having the best of intentions. And there are some people who take some shortcuts and don't have the best of opinions, but that doesn't mean that they represent the entire industry. And as far as chiropractors being quacks, not that that's what this video is about, but I learned they actually have the same amount of accredited college hours as a medical doctor. They just have a slightly different scope in their area of focus and how they acquire those hours. And I had heard that chiropractors didn't even need a degree. Well, that's actually kind of true in the fact that they don't have to have their degree. They can earn their degree as they are going through chiropractic school. So you can see how these rumors and these half-truths and these partial stories can start to form opinions about things that you don't know firsthand. So I'm interested to know, is this something that you already practice? Have you already started to pay attention to and wake up to how opinions are the source of your suffering and how they actually are giving you information that isn't the full story? I want to hear about it if you have. And if you try this on for size, I definitely want to know what kind of results you come across. And before we switch gears over to the tutorial, keep this in mind as well. In truth, opinions aren't even real. There is no right, there is no wrong, there is no success, there is no failure, there is no good, there is no bad. There's only results and feedback. Now, if you're interested in sticking around for the tutorial, I would love to show you how I make this super cute, super sweet, super easy little garland that you can hang up on any window, on a bookshelf, wherever it is that you just need a little touch of Valentine's Day love or reminder of love in general. You can even do the same method using different things to hang from. I'm just going to share a very quick, very easy way to take some ornaments that you could have spread around and turn them into a hanging decoration. So let's get started with that. Okay, now to make this garland, you just need to have about 5 to 7 ornaments that you would like to hang from the string. I'm going to be working with these heart ornaments that I made a couple videos ago. I'll make sure that I drop a link to the video in the description below so that you can find that if you're interested in making some hearts like these. I have some leftover Valentine's Day ones, and I thought, why not take them and turn them into a garland and show you how I do it. So you'll need about 5 to 7 of these hanging ornaments, whatever ornaments you want to add to it. I'm going to make mine with these hanging hearts. And then you'll need about 4 feet of yarn or the string, whatever kind of string you want to use. I'm sure you could use like hemp cord or bamboo cord or a cotton thread if you want. This is a cotton yarn. It's the same kind of yarn that I use to make the ornaments, so I thought it would just be very complimentary for this. Now you might need a little bit less, you might need a little bit more if you're going to make a longer hanging garland, but for the one that I have set aside to put together on this garland, then 4 feet is going to be the perfect amount for me to hang all 7 hearts from. So you're going to need 4 feet of yarn if you're going to be hanging 7 of these heart ornaments. And then I also like to get a couple of beads to add on to the end. I have these little glass heart-shaped beads that I'm going to add on to the end of the garland. And that's just going to give it a little bit of weight and another little decorative finish so that once they're hanging up, it just looks like a finished thing and you're not just tying off knots on the end of a string. So I really like the way that they look, and you can use, of course, whatever you want, or you can even do it without beads. Totally up to you. You can even add more beads to it as you're doing the design and putting it together if you'd like to. I'm just going to keep mine plain and just have the hanging little beads down at the end. So you got your ornaments, you've got a couple of beads, and you got your yarn. You are ready to go. The first step that I'm going to do is find the middle of the string so that I can have an even garland. And you're also going to need a ruler. So make sure that you grab that too, because we're going to make sure that we get these spaced out really well. And even. I like to keep things even whenever possible. It's art, so you can, it doesn't have to be perfectly symmetrical. You definitely can eyeball it. Now, if you want to use a ruler, you certainly can to make sure that you get the spacing even. I'm going to use my eyes to do the spacing, and I'll show you how I do that so it still matches up and is even and symmetrical in the end. And typically, whenever I do this, I space the hearts about 4 inches apart. You definitely can measure that and do it that way. I'm just going to do it by hand, and I'll show you how I do that as I go along. But the first step is find the middle of the string that you're going to be using, and then start with the ornament that you want to have in the middle itself. So I'm actually going to start with this purple one with the red on the outside. And then I'm going to take it, I'm going to string it through just like I'm hanging the ornament on it, and I'm going to move the ornament straight to the middle. And once I get to this middle spot that I'm just keeping marked with my finger, I'm going to do a simple 1 loop knot where I just wrap it through and then pull it tight, just like I was getting ready to start tying a bow, just like that. Now, as you can see here, I'm leaving a little bit of space. I'm not pulling it super tight, but I am getting it closed up. And then I'm going to do a second knot just to hold it into place. So you end up doing a 2 loop through knot. And this second one, I am going to tighten up just so it stays good and in place. Now, if you tighten it, once you do the second loop, instead of doing the first loop, then you still have a little bit of play where it's super easy for you to move this string back and forth. So whenever you hang up the garland, if you want to hang it long ways this way, or if you want to do it straight up and down, you might want to adjust the string just so it hangs really, really nice and even. And there you go. Now I'm going to use my eyes to space out where the next ornament's going to go, and I'll show you what that looks like. Now, the most important thing that you're looking for is to make sure that these two don't bump into each other. You can see how that's a pretty good space there. And I'm going to go ahead and grab the one that I'm going to put on the other side and find its spacing too, just to make sure that these hang at an even spot. And it looks like I need to slide this one down a little bit. And this is how I'm going to measure to make sure that they're even. I'm just going to make sure that they line up this way so I can tell I need to move this one a little bit further down. There we go. See that? Once you do it like that, it'll show you if they're even and lined up. And then I'm going to simply run the string through the ornament. Make sure that it is still spaced out where I want it at. I'm going to do this other one too. I'm going to do them both at the same time, just to make sure that I have them lined up well. Once again, I'm just going to double check, make sure that they don't collide into each other, and make sure that that spacing is good. And it still looks good. I'm going to move this one in a little bit. Now we're going to repeat the same thing where we do the 1 loop knot. Pull it to where it's almost tight, just leaving a little bit of space there. That also helps so that if you want to move it down closer or further apart before you get it tied all the way, that'll help to make sure that you have the ability to do that without having to undo a really tight knot. So it's doubly helpful. And you can see that one's starting to bang into that one. So we're going to move this out just a little bit. I think that's going to be a little bit better alignment. Perfect. Now we're going to just line this up after we do the second little loop. Pulling the second knot tighter. And then we'll line it up and make sure they are spaced out evenly. Okay, so now you can see these two are knotted and they are hanging very nicely. They're not banging into each other. So now I'm going to knot this one, and I'm just going to make sure that it's lined up here. It needs to move out just a touch. See how that lines up? And that's where I'm going to put this next knot. Let's go back over to this side. Do 1 loop through. Pull it tight to where it holds it in place, but not too tight that you can't slide that string easily. Do the second knot. And pull this one tighter. And then do a little test. Make sure that they're hanging nicely. Make sure that they're even and where you want them. That is perfectly close enough for me. And we're going to repeat this process for the next 4, 2 on each side, and you can watch me do that now. And now to keep the spacing even here to here, I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to let this one be the middle one. So I'll hold these two up and make sure that they line up. And then repeat that same 1 knot, slightly loose, second knot, tighter. Okay, so now we have all of our hearts attached. They're all spaced out nicely, have a nice little dingle to them, and now we can just finish them off with a bead on the end. So you're just going to take the end. You might need to wet it a little bit just to get it into a nice fine point. So here's a little tip that I like to use whenever I am trying to string yarn through a bead. Yarn is made up of several threads that come together into one, and sometimes it's hard to kind of get it to go through a bead. And what I will do is dip the end into just a little bit of glue and then twist it into a tight needle-like point, let the glue dry, just a touch of glue. It really doesn't take much at all. But then when it dries, you have this nice stiff needle-like end to your yarn. Will make it so much easier to thread the bead in one straight shot. Now I like to put the bead on kind of upside down so that when it's hanging, it's right side up. Once the bead's threaded on, then just tie a knot that is big enough to keep your bead from falling off the end. Usually 1 or 2 knots is sufficient, sometimes 2 or 3. Just test it out and make sure that it's not going to fall off the end whenever you give it a little tug. And then once you do one end, do the same thing on the other end, and you are going to be all set, other than just trimming up the end that is left over. And that's totally up to you how much you want to trim off. You can leave it hanging long, you can leave it nice and tidy. I kind of do like an in-between point. So my bead's on there, nice. And then I just trim off this little bit. I leave about 1 inch to hang on the end. And of course, repeat the same process on the other side. There we go. Now with this last bead, you just want to measure it and line it up once again with where these last little knots are so that they can hang about the same distance down. It doesn't have to be exact. Just close to in the ballpark. I'm going to put 3 knots in it because I did 3 knots on the other side. Then the very last thing to do is to hold up these 2 ends and snip it off where it is at the same length for the little tassel end. And once you do that, you can slide the beads back down to the bottom without fear of them falling off. And voila. Your garland is done and ready for hanging, just as easy as that. Now, as an alternative, if you wanted to, you can also hang it straight down. And that's why I like to keep these knots just a little bit loose so that you can adjust the heart so that they hang nice and balanced. If you have additional insights to share around opinions being the source of your suffering or around making decorative garlands, be sure to share your thoughts in the comments below so we can all learn from each other. And definitely, if you try this tutorial at home, send me a picture, post it and tag me. I want to see what it is that you created. Thank you so much for watching and sharing this video with others. Be sure to hit subscribe wherever you are viewing this and turn on notifications so that you know every time a new video drops. And if you haven't done so already, I do invite you to check out the community that I'm building over on Patreon. You can check that out at the link below, where I am guiding you throughout this year on how to discover and live more fully into your purpose, how to create a life that is aligned with your purpose, and how to do all of it in a way that is a service to others. So if you're interested in plugging into that conversation and support, hop over to bit.ly holistic support for more details. And I will see you again next week with another creation video and tutorial walking you through the creative process. Bye.